Tonight, for the first time, the complete Christian Bible is published in the Mohawk language.
How can this bill accurately engage with us and lead to a meaningful change?
Plus, the Senate gets an earful on tracking reconciliation.
As far as I know, Oshawanaga River is probably recognized as one of the best fisheries now along Georgian Bay.
And Mother Nature gets a helping hand from a First Nation pickerel hatchery. Good evening, Tanse Yanin. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Daryl Stranger. In southwestern Nova Scotia, Digby RCMP have arrested 3 people for alleged assault and theft of Mi'kmaq lobster. The theft was caught on film last August by APTN News. Here's Angel Moore.
Digby RCMP have confirmed to APTN News 3 of 4 suspects have been arrested, seen in this black boat taking away a crate of lobster. It happened at the Weymouth North Wharf, about 200 kilometers southwest of Halifax last August. The lobster and the crate belonged to Cheyenne Francis of the Sabaganagati Mi'kmaq Nation. According to an RCMP press release, Sabaganagati community members confronted the suspects. At that time, they dumped the lobster and threw the empty crate at a community member. RCMP say no charges have been laid, and the 3 suspects have been released on condition to appear in Digby Court on December 11th. The 4th suspect, in the yellow baseball cap, has not been identified. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Jabuktuk, also known as Halifax.
A Senate committee continues to examine new legislation that will create a national council to monitor the government's progress on reconciliation. Bill C-29 was before the Senate Committee on Indigenous Peoples on Tuesday morning. It guarantees one council position to the Assembly of First Nations, Inuit Tapiri Kanatami, the Métis National Council, or MNC, and the Native Women's Association of Canada. But a number of stakeholder groups, including the Métis Nation Saskatchewan, have told the government the council is not inclusive enough. MNS Vice President Michelle Leclerc told the committee the council needs representation from all members of the Métis Nation, not just the MNC.
Without proper consultation, without knowing each of our processes and systems or how they intersect, how can this bill accurately engage with us and lead to a meaningful change?
Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland today announced that the federal government is unlocking another $20 billion in low-cost financing to help spur the construction of low-cost rental housing across Canada.
I am increasing the annual limit for Canada mortgage bonds from $40 billion to $60 billion. Builders need access to low-cost financing. And to ensure builders have access to the financing they need to build more homes faster, we are unlocking up to an additional $20 billion from Canada mortgage bonds and directing this money to multi-unit rental projects.
The government hopes the change will lead to the creation of an additional 30,000 rental units every year. Kenneth Cordray was convicted Monday in an Edmonton courtroom of manslaughter for killing 30-year-old Billy Johnson. Johnson disappeared on Christmas Eve in 2020. Her remains were found 4 months later in a field north of Edmonton. Justice Steve Hiller said the mother of 2 likely died from 1 or more blows to the face. Cordray and Johnson were dating at the time. Cordray had previously pled guilty to committing an indignity to a human body. A sentencing date will be set October 6th. Billy Johnson's mother said she wants the maximum sentence.
I cried because I knew that he was going to get it, that he would get this. And I'm fine with it as long as it comes with life, because he took my daughter's life and he needs to pay.
Over 1,000 people gathered at the Manitoba Legislature in Winnipeg over the weekend in support of the LGBTQ2S+ community. This follows the nationwide movement against sexual orientation and gender identity within the school system. Tamara Pimentel spoke with many Indigenous people at the protest.
It was a massive show of support for Winnipeg's queer community who say they're fighting for the safety of trans and two-spirit children in schools. For Sadie Lavoie, this gathering is about bringing a voice to vulnerable students, especially those who are also Indigenous.
It's really disheartening when you have a group of people that believe that your existence shouldn't be allowed or that our rights need to be relinquished. There is the amount of suicide rates that are among Indigenous people. It's a lot, or even in people in general. It's mainly two-spirit LGBTQIA. Especially those that are up north that are in isolated communities. So when they see this, they see that we are fighting for their right to exist and that they deserve to survive.
This is a counter-protest in response to the 1 Million March for Children movement that saw thousands across Canada protest against LGBTQ2S+ education last Wednesday. They're advocating for the removal of sexual orientation and gender identity curriculums in schools.
It's essentially saying that's great, but we really don't want to see you, we don't want to hear from you. That's what it feels like. You're asking us to just disappear, and that's double, especially if you're Indigenous and queer. That's there's no space in this world for you.
The peaceful gathering at the Manitoba Legislature ended in a walk to the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. Many here say queer children face bullying and need more support in order to receive a proper education.
As I was growing up, I never had that inclusion in school. I was always left out, always picked on. So it's important that our trans youth have a voice and have say.
Seeing how many people have mobilized this last Wednesday, it's very indicative that we need education, particularly LGBTQ education within our school system, so that non-LGBTQ kids and their peers can understand them better, and as well as have a grasp on how to better protect us as a community, as a vulnerable population.
Tamara Pimentel, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Well, we want to hear what you think about the stories you've seen to start our show tonight. Here's how to continue the conversation. To read and watch our stories, go to aptnnews.ca. And if you have a story you want to share, send us an email to news@aptn.ca. You can find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X, previously known as Twitter. Make sure to follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. Members from the Mohawk community of Ganasatawge gathered at a local church a few weeks ago to celebrate the publication of the first ever Mohawk translation of the Bible and the elder behind this incredible achievement. Marcel Amador has more.
Harvey Satewas Gabriel, a first language speaker, spent almost 17 years translating the Bible to Mohawk, a testament of his passion and dedication for his language.
My mother always told us, never speak another language except what you were born with, because the Creator gave you that language.
Gabriel recounted how his mother, Gladys Jacobs, a residential school survivor, first brought him to the United Church in Ganasatawge when he was just a boy. Then, in 1957, he was left astonished when he heard a church service delivered in Mohawk.
And then when we got home, I said to my mother, how come we don't have our own Bible? She said, oh, that's a big project. Who's going to translate it? And that word stuck with me for a long time.
Gabriel said that he started translating passages from the Bible around 1980. When he was asked to give readings in Mohawk at the church. Then, in 1999, 3 retired teachers from Ganawage invited him to translate 2 Corinthians.
I took chapter 4, 5, 10 to the finish. And I did it faster than anybody.
Once the project was over, Gabriel continued to translate the Bible on his own, spending countless hours in his workshop going verse by verse.
The director of the Montreal Canadian Bible Society called me. He says, how you doing? I said, I'm in a very bad dilemma. He said, why? I said, you know, my translation is just piling up on a shelf going nowhere.
The Canadian Bible Society provided funding and connected Gabriel with a biblical language professor who verified the accuracy of the translation.
And then all of a sudden he said, brother, your translation is side by side with the Hebrew.
But more money was needed to complete the years-long project. So Gabriel's wife reached out to the United Church of Canada Foundation, which was eager to help.
Because it just seemed so impressive as a work and important for the future of the Mohawk language.
Or added that their involvement is also an important step towards reconciliation. The 83-year-old elder is now planning on recording himself reading the Mohawk Bible.
And I keep telling the young people, if you don't have your language, you have no identity. That's my identity. I speak the language.
Maricela Amador, APTN National News, Kanesatake.
Time to take a short break. Still ahead, a fish hatchery is achieving success in keeping pickerel stocks healthy.
We'll harvest eggs from the females. We will harvest males as well. And what we'll do is we'll dry mix the eggs in a bowl and fertilize it with the milk.
Welcome back to APTN National News. Shawanaga First Nation is located north of Parry Sound, Ontario in the Georgian Bay area. It's home to unique little fish hatchery that has had great success in the replenishment of pickerel stocks in the local waterways. Here's Annette Francis with more.
Aaron Pamajuan has been coming to this very spot every spring as long as he can remember. It's a special place, catching and preserving walleye, also known as pickerel in other parts of the country, is in his blood.
I remember staying down here overnight under the stars by a campfire, coming down harvesting walleye and then heading back out in the day. And you know, it's something that's very dear to me because my grandfather has worked for M&R, helping out this fishery.
Many from the community come to harvest walleye on the Shawanaga River.
The water would be flowing much faster than it is now because of the snow melt and the spring melt. And you would see you know, thousands of walleye coming in to spawn. They'll come in after ice out, and once the water temperature reaches around 8 to 10 degrees or so, they'll start their spawn, and we'll also have members that come down and harvest the walleye traditionally with spears, and that's to feed their families.
At the same time, this is when Pamajuan, the community's fish hatchery operator, and others come to help preserve the walleye population.
We'll harvest eggs from the females. We will harvest males as well. And what we'll do is we'll dry mix the eggs in a bowl and fertilize it with the milk. And once that's done, we will give it a clay bath, which will take off the stickiness of the eggs. When in nature they want to stick the rocks and stuff, but at the hatchery we want to make sure that they're free flowing, and so that clay bath will take that off. And then once that's done, we'll transport the eggs back to the hatchery.
The hatchery is a long-running preservation program that began in the 1980s in response to the declining population of fish. Wayne Pamajuan was the chief when it began. He's proud of what it's become.
As far as I know, Shawanaga River is probably recognized as one of the best fisheries now along Georgian Bay. And it didn't happen by itself. It happened with the work my people did there and their contribution towards the preservation of that fishery.
Pamajuan says each year the hatchery has produced 3 to 5 million fry into the waterways. Part of that success is the community support for the program and education.
Once the fry are starting to hatch in the hatchery, we'll call the school down, and I'll put little fry into little cups for them, and they put the fry back into the water. So that shows them that, okay, here there's that whole cycle here. That fish that gave me life, gave its life to give me life, and I'm giving that life back to the water.
According to Pamajuan, when this new hatchery is up and running, it will have the capacity to hatch over 8 million walleye fry and produce close to 200,000 advanced fingerlings, giving them a better chance of survival once released. It's expected to be ready by next spring. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Shawanaga First Nation.
A new and improved management plan for the Torn Gap Mountains National Park in northern Labrador was tabled in Parliament last week. The almost 10,000 square kilometer park is located on Inuit territory in Labrador and Nunavik. The area is considered to be under the control of Parks Canada. Management plans like the one tabled last week are reviewed every 10 years. This new plan will include updating the park's base camp and providing more contact with Inuit storytellers. Around 500 people visit the park each year for hiking, camping, and rock climbing excursions. The impact of Canadian forest fires this week was noticeable north of 60 as communities hundreds of kilometers away from the flames experienced smoke. Wildfire smoke drifting from the Northwest Territories and northern Quebec was visible in Iqaluit, Nunavut. Northern and Western Canada this year has faced an unprecedented forest fire season marked by major evacuations and record-setting flames. This was the scene around the Iqaluit. Over 15 million hectares of forest burned in 2023, surpassing the previous 1995 record of 7 million hectares, according to Canadian Geographic. A 64-year-old pilot is lucky to be alive after escaping unharmed from a plane crash Sunday afternoon. He was the only person in the plane when it crashed near the Red Sucker Lake Airport, 530 kilometers northeast of Winnipeg. Island Lake RCMP say another plane passing over noticed the downed plane and reported it. RCMP secured a helicopter to assist, but due to the bog, it had to hover just above the ground long enough to bring the pilot to safety. The Transportation Safety Board is investigating. All right, one final break is upon us. Still to come, an Algonquin woman is preparing to sing the anthem at a Toronto Blue Jays game.
One of the ladies that works for the Jays came across it on social media. She shared it with their entertainment team and they said, find this lady, find this officer.
Welcome back. It's time now for our photo of the day. Fall is upon us, and Clarence Jones has shared this shot from the Gitxsan Nation. We can see some snow beginning to form on the mountains in the territory, letting us know another season is just around the corner. Thanks so much for this photo, Clarence. Send your fall shots to share at aptn.ca for the chance to be our next photo of the day. All right, now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the east coast, the 13 in St. John's and clear 19 in Halifax. 18 degrees in Cartwright and 19 in Happy Valley Goose Bay. Clear and 21 in Quebec City and 21 in Montreal. 21 in North Bay and 22 in Sault Ste. Marie. 21 degrees in Timmins and 24 up in Big Trout Lake. Mix of sun and cloud and 23 up in Churchill and 22 in God's Lake. 22 in Barons River and 21 in Winnipeg. 23 in Regina and 21 in North Battleford. Some showers at 19 in Buffalo Narrows and 19 in Stony Rapids. Continuing west, 18 up in Fort Chippewa and 14 in Peace River. 18 degrees in Edmonton and 21 in Medicine Hat. 16 degrees in Vancouver and 15 in Campbell River. 13 degrees in Prince Rupert and 11 in Fort Nelson. 10 degrees in Watson Lake and 10 as well in Mayo. 10 in Fort Simpson and 9 in Wrigley. 5 degrees in Fort McPherson and 6 in Colville Lake. -1 in Cambridge Bay and 11 in Chesterfield. 0 degrees in Iqaluit and 4 in Iqaluit. An Algonquin woman and sergeant of the Anishinaabeg Police Service in Nipissing, Ontario, has been warming up her vocals. It's all in preparation for when she heads to a Toronto Blue Jays game on September 30th. Here's Annette Francis to explain what exactly she'll be doing there.
Singing has always been a favorite pastime for Sergeant Chantal Larocque of the Anishinaabeg Police Service. Usually she sings with family and friends, but lately she's been singing "O Canada" everywhere, even in her cruiser.
Okay, it's time to get to work or something.
Listen, I'm practicing. I got a gig on Saturday.
I thought you were like the star of the show. You don't need to.
Larocque is practicing for her biggest gig yet as she heads to the big leagues.
The reach out from the Jays was a huge surprise. Actually, I thought it was a joke for a few seconds.
Larocque, who is from the Algonquin community of Mattawa First Nation, will be singing the national anthem in English, French, and Algonquin on National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. She was scouted by the Jays after seeing a social media post by the Anishinaabeg Police Service.
Oh, Canada, terre de nos aïeux.
One of the ladies that works for the Jays came across it on social media. She shared it with their entertainment team and they said, find this lady, find this officer. I ordered over 200 so that people have their pick of sizes.
The response has been overwhelming. 200 tickets for the game were sold to her colleagues at the Anishinaabeg Police Service and members of the community of the Nipissing First Nation.
We would have sold more, but that's all I could reserve under the APS kind of block of tickets because it's a popular game given it's the end of the season. So huge response. Everyone is so excited. I'm excited. It's not about me. It's about the fact that we're going to be, Indigenous policing is going to be represented, Indigenous communities, Indigenous people, and then to have 200 people there just to support me for a game is fantastic.
Larocque says she's a little nervous thinking about the crowd, but continues to practice to relieve the jitters. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Nipissing First Nation.
Well, best of luck to her on the weekend. The Radio, Television and Digital News Association of Canada has announced the finalists for its 2023 National Awards, and one of APTN's own is on the list in the digital news category. Social media editor Jesse Andrushko put together a web page based on the reporting of Kenneth Jackson and Colin Crozier for the Investigates story My Name is Bill Isidore Duffy. This is the story of a teenage boy who doesn't legally exist. The award is based on content and web design. We'll find out if Jesse wins or not at the RTDNA Awards ceremony in Toronto on October the 21st. Certainly hoping for a win for Jesse and the entire team. All right, that's all we have for you this evening on APTN National News. Our website, aptnnews.ca, has more Indigenous news for you. For all of us here, thank you so much for joining us. Miigwech, and have a great evening.